A fun conversation that many of us have had is really the GOAT debate between MJ and LeBron. And, it certainly gets people's emotions, flared up. But I heard Michael Jordan in an interview way back in the day when he was really at his peak. Hey, Michael, do you consider yourself the greatest of all time? And he was like, hey, listen, there's different eras, and, you can't compare me to Oscar Robertson and some of these guys, Wilt Chamberlain from some of these different eras. And so I believe that to really be a true statement. But if you think of the history of basketball, and I think it can be a great comparison to really the history of the world. If you look at basketball 100 years ago, believe it or not, a jump shot wasn't a thing. People would shoot with their feet on the floor, and somebody figured out, well, maybe if we jumped while we shot, we could have a little bit more of an advantage. Ooh, there's a great idea. When Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was in college, they banned the dunk. Dunking wasn't allowed. So the level of competition has really increased. Just picture LeBron James today. If he played 100 years ago, people would be like, man, who is this freak? This guy's jumping over top of people. He's scoring 100 points a game. It'd be unbelievable. Competition's increasing. And when I think about young people in today's workforce, hey, listen, competition's a real thing. Globalization's a real thing. The world's becoming smaller, right? With technology improving. I remember as a kid in high school and college, like, Jamie, if you want to be an accountant, you're not just competing with your fellow graduates for the jobs, you're competing with kids in India that can do that job. Like, what's stopping companies from outsourcing their accounting to, just as competent of students in India? And I'm like, oh, gee, it's becoming a more competitive world. I think of my kids, the biggest competition they may face is going to be AI. What jobs will be created because of AI? There's a good question, but another question is what jobs are going to be eliminated because of AI? All I'm saying is the world is becoming more and more competitive, and we need to prepare for it, and that's really the intent of today's video. I'd like to start by thinking through the relationship between effort and results. Now, obviously, this is just my opinion, and I've got a chart here for you, but I want to just kind of think about post-World War II, what was going on in the United States. There wasn't a lot of global competition. Parts of Europe were destroyed. Japan obviously was destroyed. America kind of had its heyday back in the 50s and 60s because they were really the dominant, world power here. So here's the first chart I want to show you. I call this like old school results. Back in the old days, right, if you put in poor effort, well, you'd get poor results. Everything was on par. You'd put in good effort, you'd get good results. You'd put in great effort, you'd get great results. Excellent effort, you get excellent results. And an outstanding effort, you get outstanding results. So I like using those 5 words, almost like a 1 through 5 star rating, right? From poor all the way to outstanding. And so as the world has changed and as the world's caught up and become more competitive, well, everything's leveled up. So I want to look at chart number 2 here now. And so today, if you put in a poor effort, well, listen, you're not going to get poor results. You're just not in the game. You're out of the game, like you're out. Let's keep going upstream. You put in a good effort, you can expect poor results. You put in a great effort, you can expect good results now. You put in excellent effort, expect great results. And listen, if you want to get an excellent result, it's going to require outstanding effort. That is the new relationship between effort and results. And I think, again, that's a great place to start. You don't have to necessarily agree with this, but this is just how I'm preparing my kids to think. I think this is a great way to have owners and reps really thinking of, the competitive landscape. Think of how competitive it is to be a great recruiter. Talented people could work at a lot of different places. Like, why you've got to put in an enormous amount of effort if you're going to get the results that you're looking for. Have you heard the saying, work smart, not hard? Has anybody said that to you? Has anybody given you this strategic piece of advice? Like, listen, don't work hard. Let's work smart. Be efficient. And so I remember the first time I heard that as a rep. I mean, guy gets up in front of a group of people. He's like, listen, guys, you got to work smart and not hard. And I'm like, yeah, this is a notorious cherry picker. This is an individual who's always seeking the path of least resistance. And I don't know if that's great life advice, to not work hard, but just focus on working smart. And I have to say, I want to debunk the statement of work smart, not hard. The real answer is work smart and hard. You've got to do both. I don't know anybody successful, anybody that I've studied, whether it's an athlete, a business person, a musician, anybody who's been successful, they work hard and they work smart. So let's dive into both of those things. But we got to start by debunking, work smart, not hard. It is both. It is not sucker's choice. It's and. I love memorizing great quotes, okay? I like having them chiseled right in my psyche that I can just pull up at any point in time. And I remember the first time I heard this, I'm like, ooh, that's a good one. The first 40 hours of work per week are for survival. Everything after that is for success. From Thomas Edison. Now, if he said that decades ago, if that was a true statement decades ago, how true is that today, right? So gee, I got to start putting in some hours in the success bank, not just the survival, right? So, work hard. Now, especially in the beginning of your career, think of how we train new people. Well, a new person isn't competent yet with their pitch. And so, listen, just see as many people as possible. Make up for your shortcomings, your lack of savviness and people skills and, the 5 steps. Just make up for it by volume. See lots of people. So I think that strategy is great for everybody starting their careers off. Front load your career before life gets really too busy for you, but front load your career with just an insatiable appetite to work hard. I remember getting to know Patrick Bet-David, many years ago in our early 20s. We're both young business people trying to figure things out, and Pat just had this unbelievable work ethic. Every time we'd go for dinner, what should have been a 45-minute conversation was always an hour and a half to 2 hours, because as we're talking, he's then talking to the person sitting at the table next to us, pitching them on his business. I'm like, Pat, hey, focus on me here. It's Jamie, I'm right here. But he's always working, never took a day off. And Pat worked so hard, right? I mean, he wanted to know his threshold of how hard he could push himself. The dude put himself in the hospital, but he knew his threshold. He knew how hard he could push himself. So, working hard is just something you want to add. I think what it does to you as well, too, it really builds your confidence knowing that you can outperform, you can outlast, you've got the stamina, right? You've got the mental stamina, the physical stamina to handle yourself in the pocket. So learn how to be a great hard worker. You got to add that to the game. If working hard is focused on the quantity of effort, right, the amount of time that you're clocking in, then working smart is focused on the quality of your effort, right? I mean, many of us can clock in a 10-hour day, but then when you reflect, you can ask yourself, did I really work 10 hours? I mean, I've seen all kinds of studies with, when the world went remote, right, during the pandemic, and everybody had to work from home, how much quality time were people really putting in? And many employers were concerned because, geez, we're paying people for an 8-hour day, but they're only working 2 hours. Listen, this remote thing done, everybody get back to the office. That's what, many companies did, right? Because the quality of the time just wasn't there. So you can ask yourself, I mean, it's not like you've got cameras following you around, out there in the field. I mean, what is the quality of your work? And so there's an old saying of, hey, don't count your days, make your days count. I want to take that into a smaller bite size, hey, don't count your hours, make your hours count. How can you get the most done in the least amount of time? It's like going to the gym, instead of a 2-hour session, can you get the same workout done in an hour? That's a good question. What can you do to get the quality of the workout? And just a phrase that I like to use and like to think about is act as if. Don't act and dress for the position that you have. Act and dress for the position that you want. If you're an entry-level rep, you can't be acting like an entry-level rep. You need to act like a leader. You've got to level up. Just like the relationship of effort and results, like, geez, the competition's increased. I mean, more is expected from you. Well, geez, you got to act like a leader if you're an entry-level rep. If you're a leader, well, you need to be thinking and acting like an assistant manager. If you're an assistant manager, you need to think and act like an owner. If you're an owner, you need to think and act like a consultant. You've got to level up. I've just seen if you're mentally there, but you're physically behind, you will catch up. Think about an athlete, somebody that's a pro athlete. I've had a few of my friends go from being a college athlete to being a pro. Well, here's not how they roll. Well, I'm going to sit around, I'm going to eat potato chips, and then when I get the call, right, when I get drafted, well, then I'm going to start hitting the gym. I mean, nobody's thinking like that. They're hitting the gym, they're working out, they're not getting paid for anything that they're doing, and then the call happens. The effort comes, and then the results come. So you become a professional athlete twice. You become a pro athlete mentally, and then you physically become a pro athlete. Same thing happens in business. You become an entrepreneur mentally, and then you become an entrepreneur physically. So you've just mentally got to be one level ahead, right? Just act as if, just be thinking of that next role, act and dress like you're in that role, and eventually you're catching up. So work smart and work hard.